first year, so we have a little bit more of an idea of what's going to be involved for it. Here again, it's a written study style event, no building unfortunately, and you have 2 students, about 50 minutes, and it also lends itself well to being a station-oriented event. Hopefully we won't have any written tests for elementary school students to fill out. For this particular competition, a team of 2 students can bring 2 field guides, so 2 field guides per team. And I had people ask earlier if this meant like a homemade guide or a published guide. We've been telling people published. Apparently, some event leaders and directors don't adhere to that. But to me, when it says field guide, that means like Audubon guide to plants and trees and things like that. So I would recommend, if you're worried about your kids being at a disadvantage for following the rules and bringing in an actual guide, email your regional director and go ahead and get it clarified now, so that on competition day there's no qualms about it. And the purpose of this is that it's a resource that's publicly available to everybody, and part of this event is a student learning how to navigate a field guide. Like, there's a system to it. And I mean, it's a useful skill to have, and so I think that's part of what they're trying to instill. So they can have 2 field guides, 2 hand lenses, points are awarded for correct answers, all that good stuff. The subject material that's in this particular event, they're going to need to know the functions of the different parts of a plant, not anything too technical, like they don't need to know the stages of photosynthesis or anything like that, but they need to know that the leaves play a part in photosynthesis and that the stems play a part in transport of nutrients and water and things like that. Okay. So the very basic functions of these parts of the plants. They need to be able to reason, if there's drastic changes in environmental conditions, what effect that's going to have on the plant life. So if the temperature significantly increases, or there's like a natural disaster and it changes the landscape or something like that, they need to be able to draw conclusions and reason out like what that would change. So the distinct stages and life cycle of seed plants. There's actually a bunch of really good resources. The Magic School Bus book, it's called the Magic School Bus Plant Seeds, and I have a bullet about that later on, but that's actually a really good resource for learning about that. It explains it much better than I'd be able to. The soil science, so part D, the students need to be able to look at samples of soil. Like, something I see being a potential setup is having different samples of soil, and they can use their hand lenses to look at the particulate matter inside of them, like if it's sandy soil or if there's a lot of organic matter, and then be able to reason which one would be better for growing plants in. This, is it because it can hold more water? Is it because, reason A, B, or C? And so we actually have a couple of handouts to give y'all on a way to kind of help them learn that concept. And then finally, the tree identification. So I think there's 15 trees there. They're all found in North Carolina. So the websites that I've given you there are all going to help you with those different parts of the event rules. Some ones, the Magic School Bus is on there. That one's really, really good. For the tree and plant identification, you can get the field guide, but there's also a free iPhone app called Leaf Snap. It's developed by the Smithsonian, and basically you can take a picture of a leaf pretty up close, and it uses visual recognition software to identify that leaf. And so students obviously can't use this in the competition, but if you're walking around with your kid, or if your students are walking around with their parents outside walking the dog or whatever, encourage them to get that app out and just start taking pictures of leaves and identifying them, because I think it's a good way to get them curious about it, just engage them outside of the classroom and outside of school, to start getting used to identifying leaves.
Here's also an example of a field guide. It's published by the North Carolina Division of Forest Resources. So I'll pass this around, but this is a good guide. It shows, based on if you picked up a leaf, based on the different characteristics, kind of how you could start to classify what kind of tree that came from.
Right. The last reference there, under general references, it's a book called Botany for Gardeners. My dad is a botanist. He taught it in like community colleges and stuff like that, and he said that's a book that a lot of them use. It's written in a way that if you have a very advanced elementary school reader, it's actually still, you know, simple and concise enough that they could understand it. There's lots of really good diagrams, and it's also a good resource for coaches and parents because you know, it's easy to read and it's a good way to get the information across so that, you know, if your child has questions, then you'll be able to help them with it. The link below that is a link to a free download, the PDF of the book. So it is free online, and you can download it for your own benefit. So, are there any questions about what the event entails or anything like that so far?
So you think there'll be like actual leaves out there and they would have to identify the leaves and that kind of
Hopefully it will be actual leaves. It's possible that they'll have pictures, but I think it's important for the kids to be able to pick the leaves up and, you know, look at the underside and stuff like that. So hopefully it's going to be actual leaves. So one thing that we like to encourage kids to do to kind of get excited about this event and start studying for it is to make a botany notebook. And what we do, go ahead, before all the leaves fall off the trees, go collect different size, shape, color leaves. Don't worry about what they are right now, but have them collect, you know, a handful of leaves. And there's a video online on how to make this leaf press. It's on the Backyard Botany website, basically. So it's just a couple pieces of plywood, some corrugated cardboard, and paper towels. You can also just use big heavy books and squash the leaves between that. And what they can do is press and preserve the leaves and then mount them in their notebook. So this isn't an official field guide, so they can't bring this in for the competition, but what they can do is mount them and then start learning how they're going to identify them. What I recommend doing, instead of just memorizing a specific leaf with a specific tree, is learning the process that you would go through to identify it. So, you know, first you want to look at the stems, then you want to look at the tips of the leaves and see what their shape is. You want to look at the base of the leaf and see what that shape is. The first couple of pages in that forestry book actually explain how to do that. And so what I see being very useful, and what Tyler thought would be useful, is actually having like a list of questions that you would ask yourself if you're trying to identify this leaf. So is it deciduous or evergreen? Are the leaves shaped like, are they lobal or compound, and things like that. And since the list of trees, I think there's only 15 of them, and they're distinctly different from one another, they'll be able to ask themselves a series of questions, like in a flowchart kind of form, and identify that leaf. So this way, when your students get to competition, they have a leaf in front of them, they don't know what it is right off the bat, they're going to have a process in their mind, like, okay, it doesn't have needles, so it's not an evergreen, so I know it's deciduous, and then they can go down their flowchart and process it that way. Yeah, this is a great resource for them. They can't take it in, unfortunately, but it'll be a good way to kind of get them curious and seeing about what it is. The last thing is, I wanted to bring in dirt samples today for us to play with.
Can they label their field guide?
Yes.
Yes, they can. Like Post-it notes or something like that. As far as I know, they can. I know that we used to do it.
Put tabs so they can
Yeah. As far as I know, they can. It is possible, it's up to the discretion of the event leader. It's possible that there'll be some discrepancy on it. I would just go ahead and clarify it. If you have the question, go ahead and email the tournament director, because it's better to be safe than sorry. You can pass that around too. Those are some flashcards.
Yeah, these are
For
put out by
trees.
the Boy Scouts of America. They cover many more than the 15 trees and trees in North Carolina, but they're kind of cool. They're just little flashcards.
So the last thing was, I wanted to bring in soil samples today, but it was raining and cold, and it would have been really messy. So one thing that I'd like to recommend that you do, we had a teacher earlier who said that when she was teaching a 3rd grade soil class, she had her kids, you know, write home to grandma and grandpa or to different family members around the country and send in a soil sample. If you don't want to go that far, just tell the kid, you know, grab some soil from home, grab it from school, go get some sand out of the, you know, the volleyball court or whatever, and bring all these in, have them use their magnifying glasses and study the particles that are in there. There'll be distinct differences between clay, between like, you know, loamy soil that you find around lake and riverbeds and stuff like that. And then you could even throw potting soil in there if you want to. So have them study that, you know, have them wet it down and like squish it with their hands and see what the different properties are. And then what I've brought for y'all are actual bean seeds. Apparently these are very easy to grow and pretty indestructible. So if you just put it in about 2 inches down in some soil, beans are very responsive to differences in soil quality, and so there'll be very drastic differences if you grow this in sandy soil versus clay versus potting soil. And so what I recommend you do is get these 3 different samples, put them in a controlled, you know, window with a good amount of sunlight, and you know, have the kids keep a little notebook, you know, measure how tall the plants are every day. It'll take about 2 weeks for them to sprout. And what you can also do is, I picked up the soil testing kit from Lowe's. It's $10. There's actually 10 tests in it, and it tests pH, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So one of the things they need to know is how the nutrient levels of soil will affect plant growth. And so this is a great way for them to test the different soils that they bring in, and then after they've collected their data about their bean plants, you know, relate, well, this one had more, this one was a more alkaline soil, or this one had more potassium. My plant is, you know, way bigger than all the other ones. So it'll be a very straightforward way for them to relate all those things, as well as looking at the physical properties of the soil. Hi. So yeah, I think that was it. And some beans. Yeah, I think that was about it. Do y'all have any questions about botany? Do we have, oh, and this last thing, are any of y'all going to the North Carolina Science Teacher Professional Development?
It's in 2 weeks in Greensboro.
2 weeks in Greensboro. Are any of y'all registered for that? Okay, well, this is a resource that they hand out there, but you can also get it from the North Carolina Forestry Association. If you're just trying to get your kids interested in, like, you know, what trees are used for and what they what kind of products you can be making from them. This has some less traditional examples, like we all know paper comes from trees and stuff like that. I learned today that citrus flavorings for like candies and sodas and stuff like that is derived from pine rosin, which I didn't know. There's also gum in here and toothpaste and hot chocolate. So there's it goes through, like, you know, where all these products come from, what they're derived from, and it's, I think it's interesting to read through. And it might be something interesting for you to show your kids, so you can read through that as well. There you go.
Thanks.
I think a lot of people wanted to go to the Greensboro thing, but it's like $180 and
Oh, really?
no money for it. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Our school we only have 1,400 site development hours, like hotels and stuff.
Is this kit orderable?
I believe so. At the website, there's at the bottom, it's I think it's ncforestry.org. And I know that they'll also have other resources on there where you can find things for this event in particular. Do you have any questions?